In a quiet village in eastern Nigeria, a poor widow sent her daughter to beg her rich uncle for help. But what the wicked man asked for shocked everyone and led to his shameful end. My friend, you won't believe how this true story ends. Village of Umuoma, life was simple. The sun always rose gently, painting the sky orange. The sound of roosters crowing woke people up, and the smell of firewood smoke drifted from every kitchen. Everyone knew everyone. In this village lived a widow named Ngozi, a gentlewoman who had suffered more than her share in life. Years ago, her husband had died in a terrible motor accident on the Enugu-Onitsha expressway. He left behind not a fortune, not houses, not cars, but 3 young daughters, Chinaza, the eldest, then Oluchi, and little Uche, who was barely a baby at the time. There was no son, and in the culture of their village, that was a problem. People respected men more when they had a male child, someone to carry the family name. From the day her husband died, things were never the same. Her late husband's younger brother, Ease, became the so-called man of the family. But instead of protecting them, he saw them as a burden. People whispered that he had always been jealous of his late brother's respect in the village. Now that his brother was gone, he felt powerful. Years passed, and the family struggled. Ngozi farmed small pieces of land to feed her children. Sometimes she worked for people just to get food. She hardly ever asked Easy for help. She knew the kind of man he was. He had money, yes, he traded in timber and was one of the wealthiest men in Umuoma. But his heart was like stone. One rainy season, trouble came. Ngozi fell very sick. At first, she thought it was just malaria. She tried herbs, but her condition got worse. Her body was weak, she could hardly stand. The girls became worried, especially Chinaza, now 17, who had grown into a responsible and beautiful young lady. One night, Ngozi called Chinaza to her side. "My daughter," she said, her voice shaky. "I need to go to the hospital, but I have no money. Please, tomorrow morning, go and see your Uncle Easy. He is the only one who can help us now." Chinaza's heart dropped. Uncle Ease? She had always avoided him because of the way his eyes followed her whenever she passed, but she couldn't say no to her sick mother. She nodded slowly. "Yes, Mama, I will go." That night she couldn't sleep. The sound of the rain hitting the roof, the smell of wet soil, and her mother's weak cough made her chest heavy. She prayed silently that Uncle Ease would just give her the money without any trouble. The next morning the sun rose bright and hot. The earth was still damp from last night's rain and the leaves glistened with water drops. Chinaza woke up early, swept the compound and fetched water. She washed her face, tied her hair with a scarf, and wore her cleanest dress. Her mother watched her from the bed. "Go, my daughter," Ngozi said weakly, "and may God touch your uncle's heart." Chinaza started the long walk to Uncle Ease's house. She passed familiar faces, women heading to the market, men carrying hoes to their farms, children chasing each other in the dust. Everyone greeted her warmly. "Naza, good morning, oh," they called. She smiled faintly and waved. Ez's compound was one of the biggest in the village. A tall, red-painted gate stood at the entrance. His house was built with cement blocks and painted white, rare in the village. He had a car parked in the front yard, and the smell of fried yam drifted from his kitchen. When she knocked, Ez came out wearing a fine shirt and a gold wristwatch. His belly was round, his skin shiny from palm oil food. "Ah, Chinaza," he said, his eyes slowly traveling from her head to her toes. "What brings you here this early morning?" She lowered her eyes respectfully. "Uncle, Mama is very sick. We need money to take her to the hospital. Please, help us." Ezzy leaned against the doorframe and smiled in a way that made her uncomfortable. "You know I can help you," he said, "but nothing goes for nothing." Her heart skipped. "Uncle, please, it's Mama's life. Just help us." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You will get the money, if you sleep with me." Chinaza's mouth fell open. "Uncle, how can you say that? You are my father's brother." But Ease only laughed, a low, ugly laugh. Think about it. Your mother is dying. You need the money. I won't force you. But if you want it, you know what to do." Tears filled her eyes. She begged again, but he refused. She stood there for a long moment, torn between disgust and desperation. Finally, trembling, she nodded, thinking of her mother's weak body on the bed. "Good," Ezzy said, grinning. "Come inside." Chinaza stepped into her uncle's sitting room. It was large, with shiny tile floors and a big leather chair that looked too soft to be real. The air smelled of perfume and fried yam. She stood by the door, afraid to move. Ease locked the door and put the key in his pocket. "Come," he said, patting the chair beside him. Her legs felt heavy. She wanted to run away, but she remembered her mother's labored breathing. She thought, if I just do this quickly, Mama will get better. When it was over, she felt empty. She grabbed her dress and pulled it over her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. She didn't look at him. She didn't want to see his face. Easy tossed a few naira notes on the table, money that had suddenly lost all value in her eyes. "Here," he said, "go and save your mother. Save. Remember, don't tell anyone." She picked up the money with trembling fingers, slipped it into her bag, and walked out without saying a word. Her legs shook as she passed through the gate, and her chest burned with shame. Halfway down the road, she saw people gathered at the corner. They were whispering. Her stomach knotted. "What happened?" she asked a woman standing nearby. The woman looked at her sadly. "Naza, your mother. She is gone." The words slammed into her like a stone. She dropped her bag, the money spilling into the dust. "No, no, no!" she cried, falling to her knees. Her heart pounded so loud it drowned out every other sound. She ran as fast as her feet could carry her, back to the house. She burst into the room and saw her mother lying still, her eyes closed, her lips pale. The neighbors had already covered her with a white cloth. Chinaza collapsed beside the bed, clutching her mother's hand. "Mama, why didn't you wait for me? I brought the money. Her voice broke. She could not tell them where the money came from. She could not tell them the price she had paid. She cried until her throat felt dry and her body ached. The neighbors tried to comfort her, but she pushed them away. Finally, she stood up, wiped her face, and picked up the money from the ground. She looked at it one last time, then threw it into the fire outside. The notes curled, blackened, and turned to ash. "I will never use this money," she whispered. The next morning, the compound was quiet except for the soft murmurs of neighbors. Some women were inside, helping to prepare the body for burial. Others sat outside, discussing in low tones. Chinaza sat alone under the mango tree, staring at the ground. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She had not eaten since yesterday, but she wasn't hungry. All she could think about was the way her uncle had looked at her, the way she had betrayed herself for nothing, and how her mother was gone forever. She decided she could not stay in the compound any longer. She needed air. She needed to move. She grabbed her faded slippers and started walking toward the main road. The sun was hot, beating down on her head, but she didn't care. She just kept walking, her mind far away. That's when she saw them. Two men standing under the shade of a tall palm tree, talking in serious tones. She slowed down. Their voices were low, but the words caught her attention. "That Ezzy wants to sell the land again," one of them said. "Yes," the other replied. "The land that belongs to his late brother. That land is not his own. It's for the children." Chinaza froze. They were talking about her father's land, the only land he had left for them before he died. Something inside her snapped. She stepped forward quickly. "Excuse me, sirs," she said, her voice shaking. The two men turned to look at her. One was tall and dark with a small beard. The other was older with wrinkles around his eyes and a walking stick in his hand. "What is it, my daughter?" the older man asked gently. Chinaza hesitated. She looked around. No one else was nearby. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "Please, I have something to tell you. It's about Uncle Ize." They exchanged glances, sensing something heavy in her voice. "Go ahead," the tall one said. "You are safe with us." The words spilled out before she could stop them. She told them how her mother had been sick, how she had gone to beg Ease for money, how he had said she must sleep with him first, how she had cried but in the end agreed, only to come home and find her mother dead. When she finished, there was silence. The tall man shook his head slowly, both hands on his head. "Abomination," he muttered. "This is an abomination." The older man struck the ground with his stick. "This man is not only greedy, he is cursed. He will destroy this family if we don't act." They both stepped closer to her. "My daughter," the older man said, "you must not fear. We will call the elders. We will tell the village. Ez will not go unpunished." For the first time since yesterday, Chinaza felt a small spark of hope. She nodded, wiping her tears. They walked together toward the village square, their steps firm and purposeful. By the time they arrived, the news was already spreading like Harmattan fire. People began to gather, angry voices rising. "Call him!" someone shouted. "Let him come here and explain himself." And that was the beginning of the storm that would sweep Ease out of the village forever. By the time Chinaza and the two men reached the village square, the place was already buzzing with noise. Word had spread faster than they expected. Young men stood in clusters, their eyes burning with anger. Women gathered in groups, whispering and shaking their heads. Even the children, sensing something big was happening, stayed close to their mothers, wide-eyed. The elders sat in a semicircle under the old udala tree. Their walking sticks rested on the ground before them. Among them was Chief Okafor, the oldest man in the village, with a deep voice that could silence a crowd. "Where is Easy?" one of the elders asked. "He is in his compound," a boy answered, panting from running. "Should I go and call him?" "Go," Chief Okafor ordered. "Tell him the elders demand his presence." The boy ran off. It didn't take long before Ease appeared, his face carrying that same proud, stubborn look. He was wearing a white singlet and wrapper, his chest puffed out as if nothing in the world could touch him. "What is the meaning of all this noise?" he barked. "I was resting when that boy came to disturb me." "You will know the meaning very soon," Chief Okafor replied calmly. "Sit down." Eze looked around and saw the angry faces staring at him. Something in his eyes flickered, but he quickly masked it. "I have nothing to hide," he said, lowering himself onto a wooden stool. The tall man who had met Chinaza earlier stood up and cleared his throat. "Elders of our land, hear what I am about to say. Yesterday, this girl, Chinaza, the daughter of the late Chike, went to her uncle Ize to beg for money for her sick mother's treatment. This Ize told her that before he could give her the money, she must sleep with him." A loud murmur rippled through the crowd. "That is not all," the man continued. The girl, under pressure and with no other choice, agreed. But before she could return with the money, her mother died. And today, we also hear that Easy is planning to sell the land that belongs to his late brother, the father of these children. Gasps filled the air. Some women covered their mouths in shock. Others shook their heads, muttering prayers. As he stood up suddenly, "Lies, all lies. These people want to destroy my name because I am the only successful man in my family." "Sit down," Chief Okafor's voice boomed like thunder. "You will speak when we allow you to." Easy glared at the chief but sat back down slowly. The older man with the walking stick stepped forward. "Chinaza, come here." She walked to the center, her legs trembling. "Tell the elders what you told us," he said softly. Her voice cracked as she repeated the story, but she didn't leave out a single detail. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she spoke. By the time she finished, some of the elders' eyes were glistening too. Chief Okafor turned to Ize. "Is there anything you want to say?" As he shifted uncomfortably, "She is lying. I am not that kind of man." But the villagers had heard enough. Angry shouts broke out. "Abomination! He must leave our land. This is not the way of our people. Chief Okafor raised his hand for silence. Ize, you have shamed your family and your village. You have tried to destroy the future of your brother's children. From today, you are no longer welcome here. Take your things and leave. If you return, you will face the wrath of the entire village. Azi's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked around, saw the fury in the villagers' faces, and realized there was no one to defend him. Two young men stepped forward. We will follow him to his compound and make sure he leaves before sunset. Chinaza stood quietly, watching as the man who had brought so much pain to her family finally faced justice. For the first time in days, she felt a small weight lift from her chest. As soon as Chief Okafor gave the order, two strong young men, Ifeanyi and Obina, stepped forward. They were both known for their strength and their short tempers when it came to injustice. Ize, stand up, Ifeanyi said, his voice cold. Ize glared at him. Don't talk to me like that. I am older than... Stand up, Obina barked, stepping closer. This is not about age. This is about the evil you have done. Ize's eyes darted around the crowd, searching for even one person who might speak for him, but all he saw were angry faces and folded arms. Not even the people who used to laugh with him at the beer parlor could meet his gaze. Slowly he rose to his feet. I will go, he said, trying to sound defiant, but his voice trembled slightly. The crowd followed as Ifeanyi and Obina escorted him to his compound. Women carried their babies on their backs and still joined the march. Even the children followed, picking small stones along the way, not to throw, but to mark the moment in their minds. When they reached Ize's compound, Ifeanyi threw a raffia bag at his feet. Pack your things, he ordered. Eze hesitated. Can't I even... Pack your things, the two men shouted in unison. It took him less than 15 minutes to gather his clothes, his few belongings, and some money. He didn't even bother to take everything. He knew the eyes watching him would never allow him back. One old woman stepped forward. She was Mama Ifunanya, known for speaking her mind without fear. Easy, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. When your brother died, we thought you would protect his children. But you have done worse than a stranger would. Today, you leave with shame on your head. Don't ever step your foot in this village again. The villagers made a narrow path, and Eze walked through it with his bag over his shoulder. Nobody greeted him. Nobody offered him water. The only sounds were the whispering of the women and the shuffling of feet on the dusty ground. When he reached the edge of the village, Obina pointed to the narrow road leading to the next town. From here, you are on your own. Eze looked back one last time, perhaps hoping someone would call him, but the villagers stood firm. His eyes met Chinaza's for a second. She didn't speak. She didn't even blink. She just stood there with her sisters, holding their hands tightly. Without another word, Eze turned and began walking away, his figure growing smaller and smaller, until the dust swallowed him. The villagers returned to the square. Chief Okafor addressed everyone. From today, these three girls will not be alone. Any person who sees them in need and refuses to help is also an enemy of this land. The two men who had first met Chinaza stepped forward again. We will take it upon ourselves to care for them, and we call on the whole village to join us. The crowd murmured in agreement. An old man raised his walking stick. As long as we are alive, they will never suffer again. Chinaza's eyes filled with tears, not the tears of sorrow this time, but of relief. She turned to her sisters and whispered, Mama would be happy. The three girls hugged each other as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. A new chapter had begun for them. The village square was unusually quiet after Easy's banishment. The dust from the crowd's feet still floated lazily in the air, but the tension was beginning to ease. People gathered in small groups, talking in hushed tones. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something that would be told for many years. The day a wicked man was sent away for betraying his own blood. Chinaza stood in the middle of the square, her younger sisters Amaka and Ifunanya on either side of her. She felt both drained and relieved. Drained because of everything that had happened in the last few hours. Relieved because at least now there was no more threat from her uncle. Chief Okafor cleared his throat, bringing everyone's attention back to him. My people, he began, his deep voice steady and commanding. Today, we have done what is right. We have removed the evil that was living among us. But our work is not finished. These children, Chinaza, Amaka, and Ifunanya, must be cared for. They have no father, no mother, and now, no uncle. From this day forward, they are the daughters of this village. The crowd murmured in agreement. One of the men who had first met Chinaza earlier, Okwudili, stepped forward. From the moment we saw her crying on the road, we knew something was wrong. We could not turn our backs then, and we will not turn our backs now. Chief, I promise to make sure these girls never go hungry. Another man, Namdi, raised his hand. I will pay for their school fees. Let no one say that because their parents are gone, they should be left behind in life. They will go to school like every other child. The women in the crowd began nodding. Mama Nkechi, the best cook in the village, spoke up. They will never lack food. I will send food to their house every week. Even the children joined in, some running up to hug the three sisters. The girls felt a warmth in their hearts that they hadn't felt since their father's death. For the first time in a long while, they didn't feel completely alone. Chinaza, still holding her sisters, managed to speak, her voice shaky but sincere. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Mama always said this village is full of good people. She was right. The old man with the walking stick from earlier came forward. My daughters, he said gently. Life has been hard for you, but the sun is shining again. Remember this day, the day your family became bigger than you ever imagined. The crowd erupted into clapping. Some people were smiling. Others had tears in their eyes. The tension of the day was giving way to something beautiful, unity. That evening, the three sisters returned to their small compound. Their thatched roof still leaked, and the mud walls were cracked. But somehow the place felt less empty. Neighbors began arriving with gifts, bags of rice, yams, groundnuts, clothes. Even the local carpenter promised to fix their leaking roof. As the girls sat under the moonlight eating roasted corn given to them by Mama Nkechi, Amaka whispered, Chinaza, do you think Mama can see us from heaven? Chinaza smiled softly. I believe she can, and I believe she is happy we are safe. The night was quiet except for the sound of crickets and the occasional laugh from the girls. For the first time in many years, their laughter was not forced. The following morning, the cock crowed loudly, announcing a new day. Sunlight crept into the small room where Chinaza and Ifunanya were sleeping. For the first time in a long time, they had slept peacefully. No fear, no nightmares. Chinaza woke up first. She sat on the edge of the bamboo bed and watched her sisters sleeping. A gentle smile spread across her face. Yesterday had been the hardest and yet the most beautiful day of their lives. They had lost their uncle, but gained an entire village as their family. She stepped outside into the fresh morning air. The village was already awake. Women were sweeping their compounds, men were preparing to go to the farm, and children ran around barefoot laughing. The smell of firewood smoke and boiling yam filled the air. Mama Nkechi waved from across the road. Chinaza, come and collect something for breakfast, she shouted. Chinaza ran over, her bare feet kicking up the dusty red earth. Mama Nkechi handed her a basket full of akara and pap. Eat with your sisters, you need strength for the new life ahead. As she walked back, she saw Okwudili and Namdi coming towards their house. They carried roofing sheets and tools. Today we will fix that roof of yours, Okwudili said cheerfully. Chinaza could hardly believe it. All her life she had been told that without a father or a mother, life would be hopeless. But here she was, surrounded by kindness she hadn't even asked for. By midday, the house was buzzing with activity. Men hammered nails into the roof, women washed the girls' clothes, and children played in the compound. Laughter and joy filled every corner. In the afternoon, Chief Okafor arrived with a group of elders. They brought a big bag of school supplies, exercise books, pencils, uniforms, and even new shoes. He looked at the girls with pride. From today, You are under our protection. You will grow up to be strong, educated women. One day, you will tell your own children how your village stood by you." Tears welled up in Chinaza's eyes. She remembered the moment she had been forced to walk to Easy's house to beg for money. The fear, the humiliation, the pain. And now, just days later, she was standing here with hope in her heart. That evening, the village gathered again in the square, but this time it was not for a meeting. It was a celebration. Women cooked big pots of jollof rice and goat meat. Palm wine flowed freely. The drummers began to play, and people danced under the setting sun. Amaka and Ifunanya clapped and danced with the other children. Chinaza joined them, laughing so hard her cheeks hurt. She looked around and saw the smiling faces of the villagers, the people who had chosen to stand up against evil and protect the innocent. When the moon rose high above the palm trees, Chinaza held her sisters close and whispered, "This is not the end of our story. It is only the beginning. We will make Mama and Papa proud." The three sisters walked back home under the silver moonlight, their bare feet brushing against the cool earth. Behind them, the sound of drums echoed through the night, carrying a message of unity, love, and hope. And so, in that small corner of eastern Nigeria, three orphaned girls began a new chapter of their lives. A chapter filled not with fear, but with the warmth of a community that had become their family. And that, my dear listeners, is the true life story of Chinaza and her two younger sisters, a story that started with pain, but ended with hope. In life, there are people like Eze, people whose hearts have turned dark with selfishness and greed. But there are also people like Okwudili, Namdi, Maman Kechi, Chief Okafor, and the good villagers, people who will stand up for what is right, even when it is dangerous. Sometimes the family you are born into might disappoint you, but God has a way of sending angels in the form of friends, neighbors, and even strangers to lift you up. Today, Chinaza, Amaka, and Ifunanya are not just surviving, they are thriving. They have food to eat, clothes to wear, and a community that loves them. Most importantly, they have their dignity back. This story is a reminder to all of us. Stand against evil, no matter who it comes from. Protect the innocent, and never forget that kindness can change the course of someone's life. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so more people can hear inspiring stories like this. Your support keeps this channel alive and gives me the strength to bring you more real-life lessons. Until next time, my friends, stay kind, stay strong, and remember, in this life, we rise by lifting others. I love you all. Bye.